What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Season 2, first episode of preseason content here on the Point After Podcast. It's been a while. I think the last video we uploaded was mock draft day 2, something like that. So it's been a while, but we're back. Matthew, how's it going, man?
It's going great, brother. Feels good to be back. We got a lot of stuff planned for this upcoming season, and I'm looking forward to starting it right now. So,
Yeah, so as you can see on your screen on the left side, got a little bit of a schedule of what we are recording. Not tomorrow that you'll see throughout the rest of this week. We got the American Conference preview that you're watching right now. We got the Cincinnati preview going up tomorrow. Conference USA the next day, UAB the next, Marshall after that. Then we've got, I think we counted last night. We have 40 preseason videos to record. So you're getting 40 days of nonstop content at least, one video per day, and then we're going off that. It could be 2 per day, it could be up to 3, and then when the season gets here, we're aiming for 1 podcast a week, 2 videos per day off of that. But like I said, first video we're getting in today is the American Conference preview. Pretty stoked about it. Got a couple really good teams that I think this conference is kind of up for grabs. I think Cincinnati's kind of the front runner across the board, but I think it's a pretty even conference compared to some of the other conferences that we talk about. So starting off, I'm assuming you got Cincinnati probably as your front runner to win the thing later on this year.
Yeah, I've got Cincinnati at the 1 for sure for the conference. I've got a lot of teams, 3 teams to be exact, at the 2 spot, and I think any of these 3 teams could win the conference. But right now, it's Cincinnati's to lose, and I'm sure most of America feels the same way. So.
Yeah, I'm big on Cincinnati mostly for the fact that they've got 3 games, really 2, 3 if you count Navy, that if they win and they win out, you win 2 of those 3 games and you win the rest of your games like you should, then you're probably going to make a really strong case for the college football playoffs, sitting at 12-1, I think, if you win your conference championship game. Play Indiana on the road, you play Notre Dame on the road. That's a team that was competing for the Big Ten last year, and a team that lost in the college football playoff semifinals to Alabama. You win one of those 2 games and then beat Navy. Your quality of schedule, your quality of wins is going to get you in the playoffs, depending on what else happens elsewhere.
I agree. And then looking at the schedule too, all of those games I think are key for them to get in. I think they could lose one, maybe Cincinnati, Indiana being an early September, early October game. But I've got my eyes on November 6th versus Tulsa. I think that right there is going to be their ticket in or ticket out.
Yeah, Tulsa's a team that, like you said, I think it's a team that people are not necessarily sleeping on, but it's kind of like one of those trap games for Cincinnati. It's like, if you don't show up and play your A game, then Tulsa is a team that could screw around and beat you. Saw yourself on the national level playing against Georgia last year, who was playing some of their best ball towards the end of the year. JT Daniels kind of came through and found his groove, and I'm excited to watch Georgia this year, especially week against Clemson. So I think if you build off the momentum that you built in that bowl game, then finding yourself AAC conference champions and probably in the college football playoff. Number 2, though, and this is another game I'm looking forward to, Cincinnati and UCF. I think that game has the potential to put up 90 points and be a Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes-esque type of game.
Yeah, I agree. I think, too, one of the reasons we get one of those games is because of probably the most notable turning player for Cincinnati, and that's quarterback Desmond Ritter. And I think, personally, he finds himself in the Heisman race this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think his counterpart in that game, Dylan Gabriel, will be right there behind him. I think Desmond Ritter's a sophomore, going to be a junior this year, I believe. And then I think Gabriel is going to be a senior this year, ranked number 4 FBS by PFF, number 2 in passing attempts, number 5 in passing yards. They get a new coach in Gus Malzahn that, he's always kind of favored run-heavy quarterbacks, and I mean now that he's got a guy that can truly sling it, you're playing. You have Cincinnati, like we mentioned. You have Boise State and Memphis, which are again two high-scoring games that are going to feature really good quarterback play. So I think UCF. I got them as my number 2 in the AAC, but I would not be surprised if they make a run in the conference too.
Very well could, and they're known to put up some points.
Yeah, and they got some.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, talking about that too goes back to talking about Cincinnati. I think, saying that this is their league or conference to lose, it's going to come down to their defense. I think Desmond Ritter, that offense is going to be fine. They're going to put up 30, 25 plus a game, no problem. But defense, how does the defense pan out? Last year, should have beat Georgia. If you ask me, I think everybody thought that at halftime Cincinnati was going to win the football game. I did. But, defense lacked off in the second half, giving up, I think it was 14 unanswered in the fourth quarter. But that's all. That's all they were from winning the New Year's Six Bowl. So
they only lost by a field goal, 6-20. I think the people that Cincinnati lost on the safety, so 9 guys. They may miss a couple guys that rotated in behind and what starting safety. Statistically, it's not that much. Core of the game, core of the box, they can put down the run. Have your 2 corners. That's always been having depth, experience, cornerback. Speaking of defense, CF, Cat Bryant, nice transfer. Smiles on. They had 2 first. So I think UCF is probably ready now that Cincinnati around.
I agree. I got on my notes right here. I got 3 stars beside 2 games. One of them being UCF, and the other one being Tulsa, like I mentioned earlier. So I definitely agree. Again, I think this is Cincinnati's league to lose. But those 2 teams, if one of them win, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
Yeah, now we can kind of get into 5. Me, you can kind of throw anybody anywhere. Makes sense, and I think every team talk about by their offense. Being SMU, Houston, Memphis, Tulane, Tulsa, kind of up for everybody, up for anybody's grabs. I think, which is the case in a lot of cases where conferences have 1 or 2 teams to step above everybody. Now, again, they could always be upset, but when it comes to consistent quality of Cincinnati's a step above. Right now, UCF is how Gus can get ball. But then Houston, SMU, Memphis, what I did last year, 400, 500 passing games, like it just kind of comes down to their defense and who can get.
Yep, I definitely agree. And, Houston is a team that defensively, I feel like they've always put out 1 or 2 draft players or draft-worthy players per year. And this year they got another one, defensive end, Anthony Jones. Last year's top 5 in pass rush, top 20 in tackles. So, player like that definitely gives you an edge on the defensive side of the ball, which in this conference, something you need.
Yeah, and if you look at Houston, turning their quarterback from like 20. I don't think he played the full season. He did. They had a bunch of. You coming back with a good back, you have your number wide receiver. You could. I think they got and a Tech, I believe. And really, the only struggle for Houston last year was turnovers. Care of the ball. Probably win some of those games last year. They have. They have a running back and wide receiver coming back. They have Trent, center, wide receiver line, and then also they got a lot of weapons that they can utilize this year. And then when metric to
And like, any team in the country, it's always fun to see how does a team respond to a new coordinator, a new head coaching situation. And Houston's in that boat right now. New defensive coordinator. I think this will be his first year.
Yeah, yeah.
So that'll definitely be something to watch, keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and they returned 9 starters. Running 9 starters. Having, I want to say they got a couple not just offense, but nothing we haven't talked about yet. Likeness. Houston's all bigs out there. I guarantee I use it.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Wouldn't you
Throw
like
that
to
out
be
there.
a college athlete today?
I remember back in like high school, 9th, 10th, I'm sitting here, college athletes should be paid. And has nothing to do with like being a college athlete, how much money they bring you to school, and
Yeah.
they're missing out. Like, I mean, you get this play for you. I think that's crazy. I'm of the NFL. So
At least the NCAA has done one thing right.
yeah, finally, no longer the national committee of athletes. So, but moving on, I got SMU, probably not conference. Sonny Docks. I feel like he's been. SMU's always got. Just like Houston, they have a ton of. Problem with SMU defense, 31. Definitely something you have to address. Kind of like on the flip side from Houston. Too much. SMU's gonna have to find a way. Now their offense can put up points. Obviously, offense can't guarantee 2 points.
Right. Another thing to go to Memphis right here. It says they returned 3 star receivers, but Javon Ivory, one guy I want to talk about, average. I think he was the highest yards per catch average last year in the American Conference, 15 yards a catch. There's only one player I know of last year that averaged close to that off the top of my head, and that's Jalen Waddle. 15 yards per catch is very impressive.
Yeah, I want to say when we wrapped up last year with our kind of stuff, he was one of the guys that gave an award. Sleeper guys that you didn't.
Yeah.
It's like or Texas, sorry.
Yep. The Buccaneers.
Yeah. But yeah, so with Memphis, Calvin Austin, one of the top receivers last 1,000 yards. Playmaker concern I have for them. Brady White was their last year. But you do have 2 transfers. I don't really know who's going to start for them. But I do know based on kind of offense that Memphis has ran in the past and the points they put up in the past, that they're going to be a solid team and will score who they're playing against.
One of those teams that could beat anybody and turn right around and lose to a very below average team. And I think that's what, killed them last year. I think they were top 15 through weeks 7 or 8. Had 1 loss to their name and then finished the season with 3 losses. And, last year was a little different, only playing 10 games. It's a little different, but losing 2 games late in the season can really hurt you, and it proved last year.
Yeah, and flipping the side, their defense last year, I think they were turning a lot of guys, but same situation you see all the time in these 5 conferences. Stop anybody. The offense is so good that if you can't get stops, you can't get off the field, giving up points left and right, then really stand no chance. Don't really matter who you're. Because I mean, we've seen in the past, there's all these FCS schools that have really good offenses that also have really good defenses. Jacksonville State kind of comes to mind. Their defense played really well last year, and then you have North Dakota State, who's got a really good offense. South Dakota State. So you look again; those are just kind of trap games. So Memphis, I got them slated in that 4, 5, 6 range. It kind of comes down to who wins the starting job at Memphis or at quarterback, how quick they pick up on the scheme, able to effectively. How many? I kind of want to say upsets, like how many games they can get away from a victory. Not supposed to.
Yeah, and with a receiving core like that too, it kind of helps your chances of catching on to things better, creating momentum, getting that energy early off in the season. They come out the opening week and throw 4 touchdowns, whoever's at quarterback, well, it changes the mindset for the entire season. You come out the first game and throw 4 interceptions, it's going to kind of determine probably the next couple games.
Yeah, absolutely. And a game that I think is subject to, you were talking about being high on Tulsa. I'm kind of high on Tulane's offense. I think Tulane's offense got their quarterback coming back. I think it was like 90% or 95% of everybody who called a pass last year is coming back. Got Chip Long coming in as the offensive coordinator. Tulane's a team that their offense is set up for success. Now, their defense, on the other hand, is not that great. But, again, I mean, if Memphis is going to let you game, then you have the capability of doing that. All it takes is one shots from your defense, and then could probably slip a win out.
Yep. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Pratt was one of the people I saw on quarterback draft preview board for 2022.
Yeah. I want to say he was second behind Ritter and Gabriel, third behind Ritter and Gabriel, the AAC last year. Reading here, Tulane kind of had the same issue that Memphis had, giving up 29.5, 30 points per game. Gave up the most plays of 40 yards, and finished last in the AAC in pass efficiency, where they surrendered 30 passes at 30-plus yards. So their defense can give the offense a little bit of health this year. Tulane could be a team that surprises a lot of people.
I want to do a little correction. Last year, Pratt was a freshman. 2022, he will be quarterback on the draft preview board.
Right, early preview for 2022.
Yeah,
draft class.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me about Tulsa. I know you seem like you're a little high on those guys this year.
The one thing I loved about Tulsa last year was how they ran the football. Running back right here, Prince, Deneric. We'll just say D Prince, 475 yards only in 2020. But you think about it, he only played 4 games, full 4 quarters. Played 2 games, halves roughly. But this year, expecting him to touch the ball 80% of the time on runs. I would say getting that many carries, I think he can look well over 800 yards. And Tulsa's, one of those teams that they're ground and pound. They do air it out pretty good bit, but who doesn't these days? But they kind of remind me of like the North Carolina of the American Conference.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me with Tulsa, and it has nothing to do with their capability, it's who they have to replace. You're replacing round 1 linebacker. I think Javon Collins went in the first round. If he didn't, I know he went in the second round for sure. And then you lose both of your starting corners.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't want to say performance will be anything that Tulsa needs to worry about. I think it just kind of comes down to experience, having people that can replace those guys and in-game adjustments, get used to the flow of the game, things like that. So I don't think Tulsa is a team that you have to worry about going out there and just games or being in a position to win games. It's more how quick can those replacements step up and Javon Collins-esque, if you will.
Yeah. Yep, definitely agree. And I think too, that's everybody I feel like is good at passing. And then you got your teams that are like great at passing. Tulsa's one of those teams that's good at passing. But the teams that have a run game, you look at North Carolina last year. Clemson, I think if they didn't have ETN, they would have struggled a lot more. Alabama, of course, without a running game last year, probably wouldn't have been as good. But you look at a team like this, they don't necessarily have to rely on one or two players. You know, it's kind of like there's not a spotlight like Devontae Smith
Yep.
or Javon Waddle or Najee Harris. You know, you get a running back like this under the radar last year, like you said, have the experience, 475 yards in 6 games roughly. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, especially to be in an offense that likes to share the ball. I don't imagine they're in any type of air raid. But the main thing with the air raid is everybody's going to touch the ball. It don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you see things where Waddle and Juke and Ruggs and Devontae were out there playing paper rock scissors trying to decide who's going to catch the ball because they knew on this one play who the ball was going to. Where air raid offense, it's designed for whoever's open. It's 1, 2, 3, check down. And that, I mean, when you look at it, and they're bringing back so many people that touched the football last year, they called a pass. They're coming back this year, basically. That's something that's going to benefit the run game tremendously because they're not going to be able to lock down one receivers and then put the rest of the defense to focus on the run game because they're going to have to spread out and focus on all 3 or 4 other end, opening up the run game. You probably see a lot of dime nickel packages and back be able to.
Tulsa too was on first and second downs. They were really good at getting 5+ yards, which is, you know, anything over 3 or 4 on your first down is really good, I think. But they were almost dead last on third down conversions. So I think if you turn that around, third down conversions are huge in a football game, especially late. With a running back like this, definitely gives them a better chance of succeeding on third down opportunities.
Yeah, and like you said, them averaging so many yards on first down, they averaged almost 6 yards per play, period, each down.
Yep.
So that's something to build on. Next, I guess we can talk about ECU, maybe. I feel like the kind of the bottom half of the AAC is all below average.
Yeah.
You know, no one really to keep an eye on. I don't think it's gonna be a Buffalo or Marshall that's gonna go undefeated. I think at least. I don't really see any of these teams being underdog that just impresses everybody all season. But yeah, starting with ECU, they steady incline the last 2 years. They're on the rise. I just don't see them competing with the offense that we've mentioned previously. They're definitely not going to beat Cincinnati. I don't see them coming close to UCF. Those are teams that just their defense is too good right now. They're too good to be in the AAC. And then their offense is just too elite for ECU to keep up with. They have a lot of transfers coming in, a lot of wide receivers, a lot of route runner tight ends that can come in and impact the offense and give them a boost. But again, I just don't see them being able to break that tier 2 AAC line.
Yep, and two, you know, talking about transferring receivers, that might have something to do with quarterback. His first name's Holton. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. It might be Ahlers. Ahlers. It's Ahlers.
I think Ahlers.
But he has been this will be his final season, which is one of the key reasons I think he will have a good season. But he has been a starter for the last 3 seasons. So talking about what you said earlier, experience. This guy's got it. Maybe that's why these receivers want to come play for the guys. There may be something cooking for ECU that we haven't seen yet. But I agree with you. Don't think they're going to finish top 4. I think they could see the 4 spot, but I think that's like at their best. I'm thinking, you know, they finish somewhere in the conference 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Right there with Houston.
Throw them in that mix, kind of like we talked about. How many of those what-if games does Memphis, SMU, how many are they able to pull out? The thing that's going to help ECU, like I talked about, was their incline from the last 2 seasons. in 2018, I think they gave up 41, or is it 2018? Let me say 2019. They gave up 42 points per game. Last season, they gave up 30. 2019, they gave up 7.3 play. Last year, they gave up 6.2. So their defense is building. The program's getting better. But, again, I just don't see them being able to crack into that Tier 2 and stay there. And could they get some wins over the middle of the pack AAC teams? Yes. But I don't see them being a long-term contender for a top 3 or 4 team in the conference.
That'll be one of those teams we talk about, like, hey, did you see where Holton Ahlers threw for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns a day? And they're sitting at 3-3. I think that's kind of the prediction I have for them, at least.
Yep.
But, player like that, all you got to do is get drafted. And I think he's good enough to find himself on a roster.
Yeah, I think so too. Next up, Navy. I use Athlon Sports, I think, was for a lot of my kind of studies on some of these teams. They have good in-depth breakdowns on each team for the 5 conferences that I'm not as familiar. They have Navy finishing 9th. I think Navy's a little better football team than that. The only thing that obviously hurts them, they just do nothing but run the ball. So Navy, really, I don't really think there's that much to talk about. I don't really have that much on Navy. I don't know. Military school, they're gonna play good, hard-nosed football, but that's it. Like they're just gonna run and hit you in the mouth.
Yep, that's what I was about to say. For somebody that spent pretty much the last year of high school, all we did was throw the ball. You know how I feel about running the football. I love it. I love seeing a team run the football and a team execute run the football. And then, not to mention the word fullback, a long-lost position in college football. Navy's fullback, Jamal Carothers, either way, fullback, 2019, 6.6 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns. That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's back this year. Didn't play last year. He's back this year. He has a season like that. Could look at him as one of the top rushers in the AAC.
Yeah. The thing with Navy is not with Navy, but just in, like you were talking about, let's throw in God knows how many times our senior. To me, the run game, when executed, is so much better to watch than the pass. Like passing game and whatnot, and concepts and understanding defenses and coverage and knowing how to hot route and audible, whatever, is from just a mental aspect, it's so much better than just run game. But when the run game is executed perfectly, there's nothing prettier in football than an executed run.
My favorite position, or positions, should I say, on the football field is offensive line. You got an offensive line you can run behind, you're probably one of my favorite teams to watch.
That's why everybody's so big on Oklahoma. Last few years, their O-line's been immaculate.
UAB, one of those teams. I think they returned 4 offensive linemen this year.
Yeah, that's probably an underrated feature when it comes to looking at how many that come back. It may have been UAB I was looking at that they only have to replace offensive linemen. And when I saw that stat, I was like, that's going to be a game changer. It's somebody on our list. I'll see it when we get to it, I guess. Next up, we got USF South Florida. Second-year coach Jeff Scott. Last year, I think this year is going to be where you see a lot of improvements in second-year coach teams. I don't have a full list of everybody that's going into their second year, but you think about what all these coaches had to endure last year with COVID and being their first year, depending on when they got brought in. If they got brought in December versus April, big difference. But like for instance, this guy, Jeff Scott, being able to have a full off season under his belt now, get a class in, a true class in, 100% his. I think that's going to help a lot. I think USF is going to make that bump, kind of like ECU, East Carolina is. I don't USF is not going to win AAC. They're
Mm-mm.
4-8 kind of season, something like that. But I think it's a team that's vastly going to improve from last season. But again, it's nobody that we're talking about at the end of the year. I guess wow, did you see how they did this kind of thing?
Yeah. And two, Jeff Scott trying to change the culture. You love to see it, especially when it comes to fruition. If the coach gets the winning culture brought back to a team, that USF is traditionally a winning football program. But look at this. Transfer quarterback Jaron Williams, this time last year, he was a starter at Miami.
Yeah.
People they'll probably turn on UCF football game this year if you're watching and think, oh, this quarterback's really good. Well, this time last year, they thought he was going to be starting against Alabama this time this year. You know what I'm saying? So, that's one thing I think for the program to turn around, Jaron Williams is definitely a good guy. They have a good position to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Jaron.
I think a 7-win season would be a successful season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just break 500 even.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, 6-6. I think I would say anything less than 500 is probably expected. So anything above even breaking 500 would be above expectations for second season of Scott at USF. Now, I guess moving into the final team, Temple. Temple is again just one of those teams that didn't really get anything going last year. That could be COVID, could not be. It could be a team that's just kind of sliding. I know a couple of years ago they were decent, had a couple of draft picks, had a good defensive. I want to say they had a good linebacker that got drafted a couple of years. And then, but talking about their defense, last year their defense completely. They had 26 points per game in 2019 and 38 last year. Some people say it was just missing so many people, so many. But the problem is their defense is just horrendous. And you're gonna have to fix that, especially playing in a conference where offense are so good, so reliable. Every team in this conference can score points, almost. So if you're gonna want to compete, you're gonna have to do something about the defense.
Yeah, and Temple and South Florida both. Bottom of the barrel last year. South Florida was, 0-6 in conference, 7 in conference. So, like you were saying, 500 for them would be exceptional. I think it's the same thing for Temple. Temple went 1-6 in conference last year. A season, this year at 500 is a really big improvement. But I think for them, as well as UCF, it should be more conference focused. You're not going to win a national championship, but you can very well compete for the conference championship.
Yeah, I think so.
And like you said, giving up that many points a game, it's going to be tough when you get teams, on average can score 40 plus, sometimes in 3 quarters. So,
yeah, I think so too. Was there anything else you want to talk about, like team wise, that we may have missed, or something you about one team?
No, the only thing I was going to ask you is what's your way too early prediction for the AAC?
I'm going to say they finished with 3 teams in the top 25, being Cincinnati in the top. I'll go Cincinnati in the top 10. I'm tempted to say top 8, top 6, but it kind of comes down to just how the committee feels about all the other Power 5 schools. Because to me, each Power 5 school has probably 2, or each Power 5 conference has at least 2 schools make the top 10. So it just kind of figures out where Cincinnati slides in between them. I think UCF will be a top 15, top 20 team, and then whoever ends up third in the AAC will finish top 25 as well.
I'm with you. The same. Cincinnati, my favorite to win the conference. I think they find themselves in the top 10. Just like you, I think a win against Notre Dame and Indiana, they can find themselves in that top 8, top 6 spot. After that, Tulsa the same. I think they could very well finish top 25. But my two teams I'm keeping an eye on this year are UCF, who I also agree could finish top 25, and then Houston. Houston's my sleeper team for the AAC this year.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think AAC Coach of the Year will end up being Gus Malzahn, because I feel like they're going to go, we'll say 11-2, something like that, somewhere in there with loss to Cincinnati, or 2 losses to Cincinnati. I don't know exactly how the AAC conference schedule works, including their conference championship, but I think UCF is going to impress a lot of people. Quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, Desmond Ritter. You got Ahmad Gardner from Cincinnati, the cornerback. It's a good guy who's going to end up probably round 1 on draft boards soon. It's basically going to be Cincinnati and UCF all year. You're going to hear a lot about both of those guys.
When do they play?
I want to say
October 16th.
Yeah, I was going to say middle of the year somewhere.
They'll be playing them. They'll play Indiana, Notre Dame, Temple, and then UCF. So that 4-game stretch is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I was concerned with Cincinnati playing Indiana in week 3, because of who they play in week 1 and 2. But I looked at Indiana's schedule and they play like Iowa and Idaho, I think. Something like
so
they play Iowa week 1, and then nobody really great week 2. So they're kind of even going into each other. It's not like one of them play Michigan or Ohio State or somebody like that to start the year. Go keep that level of competition, I think. 11 o'clock kickoff. So it'll be fun.
On the schedule they'll play Indiana and Notre Dame back to back, but they'll have the bye week in between, so that'll be huge. If they can get that 3-0 start going into Notre Dame, we could be looking at game day.
Yeah, I think so. And even then, I think if I had to make a true prediction right now, I'm going with they lose to Indiana. One, because Michael Penix will be back, or Panay. Is it Penix or Panay? I think it's Panay.
I think it's Panay, yeah.
Okay, so Panay will be back, hopefully. I pray to God he's back. He's so fun to watch last year.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing on the road. Indiana was a really good team last year, and when they don't get hurt, they're probably going to finish a little bit better than they
should have won, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either way.
So for those reasons, I'm going Indiana to take that game. Then you get the bye week, and then you go to Notre Dame, who their quarterback will have played 4 games before y'all meet. So you're still going against a real young quarterback. I think Cincinnati slips away with that one. That's their quality win that gets them in the playoffs if they need it. A win over UCF will do the same. And basically, as long as you don't screw up to finish out the year, you had Navy, Tulane, Tulsa, USF, SMU, and North Carolina before the championship. Take care of one of those 2 games in weeks 3, 4, 5. You're in.
I agree. I'm the same as you. I think Indiana is probably going to be a little too much for them. I could be wrong. Cincinnati has proved otherwise. Should have beat top SEC team last year at the end of the year. But Notre Dame game, I think there'll be a lot of hype surrounding that game. But as of right now, and even based off of last year, I think Cincinnati's definitely a better team. I think they would have been a better matchup against Alabama in the semifinal. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Maybe that'll be a little revenge game. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, and now on the flip side of this, talking about UCF, I think if UCF runs the table, beats Cincinnati week 7, I believe it is for them. Yeah, week 7 for UCF. The only problem I see with them is they're not going to have that. Cincinnati is going to be their only quality opponent. So, if they run the table, go 13-0 with a conference championship, which I believe they would have to play Cincinnati twice. Is that how that works? Because they have 11 teams in their conference.
I was about to say, I don't even know. Are they split up in divisions? I think it's just straight up.
Let's see here. AAC conference. I don't think it's split.
I'm about to say, I think it's just straight up.
Yeah, it's just straight up.
Conference record, so.
Best on best. So, yeah. They would have to play twice.
Yep.
And if UCF beats them twice, and you're looking at God, could you imagine Cincinnati going 10-3 with a loss to Indiana and two losses to UCF?
If Cincinnati beats Notre Dame and Indiana and then turns right around and loses to UCF twice, that could be a very good argument to be in. Now, that'd have to be, 12-1, 13-0.
Yeah.
Very good argument for at least a top 7, top 16.
I would say even if UCF splits with Cincinnati and Cincinnati beats Indiana and Notre Dame, I don't think UCF makes it in just because looking at their schedule, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
They play Louisville, who's not great. Boise State, who's not a quality opponent. After that, it's all, you play UConn and Bethune-Cookman. Like, those guys are not going to get you in the playoffs, even if you split with Cincy or even just go undefeated and beat Cincy twice. Because I think if you beat Cincy twice, at that point, Cincinnati is not as good as we thought they were. It lowers your standards a little too.
Yeah, I think at best a New Year's Six bowl would be, that would be like an immaculate turnaround, for their program. But I'm gonna stand by it though. I think Cincinnati's gonna win the conference, and I hope they find themselves in the playoff this year. Should have been last year.
I think so too. Either them or Texas A&M for sure.
Yep.
But I kind of hate that we just against about Cincinnati because we got to turn around and do another video again. But anyway, anything else you want to say about AAC before we wrap this one up and get on to
a lot of average football teams that can make for some really good football. I'm excited to watch this conference for sure.
Yep, it'll be a lot of. If you like offense, like point, this is going to be the conference to watch for sure. But anyway, this is episode 1 of season 2. Again, the Sharpie S-Gel pens, as Matthew advertises. Again, like we said in the beginning, if you made it this long, 42, 43 minutes in, we got a whole slew of videos coming. We got 40 at least in the next couple days, not next couple days, the next month or so. And when the season gets here, it's a lot more. After that, we have apparel that you guys can check out in the description below. Just follow us on social media, and again, just follow us on social media for polls, different player interviews that we do. We do a couple player interviews, players from D1 to semi-pro and pro guys. But yeah, I think that's all we got. You can check out the schedule on the screen now for the next few days of what to expect over here. Oh, over here. Yep. Yeah, there we go, Matt.
There we go.
All right. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. If you want us to do a team-specific video, your team, just leave it in the comment section below, and hopefully we can get to it. Manner. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.